Welcome to Classic Movie Salon. I am here with Colleen Costello. We will be joined later by Tachi, and Matthew, unfortunately, can only join us in the comments as he is in a car, not driving, watching the show, or he's driving and listening where he won't be commenting.
Could be.
I don't know. One of those.
Colleen
Costello, welcome.
Hello. Oh, I think I have it. Hold on.
I hear some echo.
Echo.
And Lavak just came through here too, and I'm going to throw this over to Facebook.
Hey,
so we are doing our first silent movie in terms of watching it, and all of us. And this was a huge one, especially for, what is this, 1923, The Hunchback of Notre Dame?
1923 it was made, and it's set in 1482. So, I mean, we have Victor Hugo's novel set during the early Renaissance, and it's set in Paris at Notre Dame Cathedral from the novel. It's very Gypsy, Esmeralda, Quasimodo. Everybody, I think, kind of knows Quasimodo. He's the Hunchback of Notre Dame, and the king everybody wants Esmeralda. I'm boiling this down, simple. Yeah. The king's brother, who's sort of been kind of, I think, taking refuge, sanctuary, it's called in Notre Dame.
Yeah, that was an interesting, and we're live now on Facebook. That was an interesting.
Good. Okay.
So I'm just going to watch I'm going to try not open the window and see if the comments will automatically load. We had
a little glitch last
Facebook problems last week for whatever reason.
Over there.
The thing about this movie, obviously, it's silent, so there's no sound, and this is 1923. From what I read, none of the original prints survived, and apparently the only thing that we're looking at now, and it sounds like based on the description of what was left, we watched. Well, I guess the only way to watch it now is you're watching a 16 millimeter transfer that was meant to be sold to people for home use. So we're watching a home movie. Oh, and Matthew's here. Hey, Matthew. Nice to see you.
All right. Yay, Matthew.
So we're watching a home movie transfer of a movie from 1923, because, of course, this was shot on the nitrate film that blows up and disappears. And
Oh, I have to interrupt quickly as an aside, Joe. Did you know, you must know, the Egyptian has a nitrate safe film booth now in LA?
No, I didn't know that. I think the only one I knew about was that UCLA one that we tripped over.
No, right, yes, and now there's one. I think and check it. I don't know if it's opened or opening, but there's one now in the Egyptian. There are going to be screenings. So I just saw that the other day on TCM. And there's going to be some goings on. So there may not be, yes, it may coincide with the film festival, which is in April. But I'm thinking, I still hear an echo. My phone's off.
Sometimes it's just the way the noise cancels it. Oh, and I see Ramon over on the.
Hey, Ramon.
Hey, Ramon. How are you? Nice to see you.
Okay. So anyway, and anyone else in LA or in California visiting, if you want to.
And also, I guess if you're in, where was the other one? Was it in Rochester, New York?
At the Eastman Museum, which is.
So to catch anyone up on something that I really wasn't overtly aware of until this year, is that
film history.
I knew about nitrate films. Silver nitrate films would often just blow up, catch on fire for no reason. And only because they're flammable and explosive, and we're not meant to last. And so most of them didn't, but there are a few around. And I found I don't know who it was some video on YouTube or Facebook or wherever the hell it was, about a screening for silver nitrate films. So when you screen these films, they will they can blow up. they can burn your theater down. So this is not, you can't just hand this to any projectionist. They really have to know what they're doing. And
special booth, special everything. Yes. So
and also, every second you're watching, it could blow up.
Yeah, well, I remember seeing. Well, you posted it, didn't you? The video with the Eastman things, the Rochester, and no one was even permitted in the area of the projection booth. So, and then they pointed out even the fire extinguishing system was kind of like
was just for show. Yeah, it was kind of like, this doesn't really do anything.
Not gonna happen. Not gonna help. We're toast if a fire breaks out. So,
and it'll really just make the cleanup a little more difficult.
Exactly. Yeah. So I guess you're all filling out a waiver when you walk in. So it was like,
yes, that was the other thing that you're and I kind of wish they did that with contemporary film going for the commercials. But I also Matthew in the comments said, since we were discussing a silent movie, I shall contribute by silently typing messages.
Very thematic. Yeah, I like it.
It is. And hello to Ramon over on the Facebook and anyone else who may be joining us because I know there's a little bit of delay.
I don't know.
The one thing about this movie right out of the gate, Lon Chaney, if you don't know, he was according to the information I looked up, he was pretty much a character actor up to a very well-known, very prominent character actor, but was not, a star. And at that point, there weren't many of those because it was 1923. But he bought the film rights to Hunchback of Notre Dame and Dom. And I got Chris Behrman on Snapchat was correcting me for my mispronunciation. Yeah, it's Notre Dame. It's the Hunchback of Notre Dame.
Potato. If you're in France, they would really get on you. But then again, you're American, so even me just speaking English is a miracle.
Exactly. But so with the film, when you're watching it, you're watching a star vehicle. You're watching someone who apparently also, like, they had a few deals. I guess there were a couple of deals in place before Universal ended up making this. And again, Hunchback of Notre Dame 1923 is available free on YouTube. Hey, Levak, how are you? Nice to see you. Levak, did you watch the silent movie? I know it's going to say no. No, I didn't do that. What are you kidding me? It's torture. So Lynn Mercier left a comment, and she said she watched Nosferatu and what were another Potemkin, Battle of Potemkin.
Classic.
But yeah, both classic silent movies, and she can never do it again. So apparently she kind of draws the line at silent movie, and I can understand that. But also because there is nothing that is not dated about this. There is nothing, the performances, the cinematography. There's no way this can't be dated because it was 1923.
It's not easy, and number one, a lot of people have trouble with period pieces to begin with, and the time that it's set in, the era, and it's a complicated story. I mean, just looking at the Victor Hugo book, I mean, it's a door stopper. So if you're on that level, on the fact that it's a silent, people, you have to be willing to give it a chance, and say,
I think that's a great way to put it. You have to be willing to give it a chance. So Levak said he did. It was painful. Ramon said he watched it. I'm waiting for Ramon to weigh in. So congratulations, Levak. Yeah, this is not a fast moving story. I will say it was a lot better than I thought it was going to be, having never seen it before. And the one thing, like, this thing is gigantic. I mean, it is absolutely, this movie is huge. Big. The production is huge. The number of extras, huge. Everything about this movie, this is epic on epic on epic.
And there's the only one word for it. Epic.
Yeah, and it genuinely is epic. That all those sets were built, like all that stuff was on a lot somewhere. And if you see this thing, it looks like they are on location.
A lot of extras. It kind of does. I was impressed by the sets. In fact, that's what I put down: sets, costumes. I don't see a budget listed, but maybe you found it.
Tammy, thanks for coming by. On Wikipedia, I'll run the stats on this real quick. This movie was directed by Wallace Worsley, which has got to be one of the. I want to steal that name. Wallace Worsley. It's just such a He strikes me as an animated character in a story that no one's written yet. Wallace Worsley lived in a house.
I like that.
Produced by Carl Laemmle and Irving Thalberg, and apparently silently produced by Mr. Lon Chaney, and of course based, as Colleen said, based on the Hunchback of Notre Dame, or Dame, or Potato or Potato by Victor Hugo or Hugo. And stars were, as we had mentioned, Lon Chaney, Patsy Ruth Miller, Norman Carey, Nigel de Bruyere, Brandon Hurst. The music is well, I don't know exactly how, because this is another thing about the music. I don't know if what we watched is what these credits are, but music by Cecil Cooping, Carl, or Copping, maybe it is, Carl Eduarde, Hugo Rosenfeld, Heinz Erich Rohild. And so this thing was made by Universal Pictures. The budget estimated was 1.25 million.
That's
running time,
1923.
Yeah, that's crazy. Running time, I guess general running time is 102 minutes. There's a director's cut that was 117, and a cut edition apparently also went out 98 minutes.
So what I watched was an hour and 40 something minutes.
Yeah, I think we watched. I think we watched
director's cuts.
Yeah, apparently we watched the director's cut, because this was not. As Lavak said, there was definitely parts of this that were painful, but part of it is just the time. And hi, Tammy. Part of it is just the time of the filmmaking. Some of it is definitely. Like, this is not reading a subtitled movie, because the dialogue, there was no dialogue.
No, and you could
also, yeah, that was one thing I wanted to bring up, and maybe Matthew can weigh in on this too. It appeared to me that what I was reading on the screen and what was being said, sometimes I would read it, then they would cut to that character who was still saying stuff, and it was even more words than what I had read. Did you catch that?
I did. Okay. And I agree. Yeah, no, I completely agree. And it helped a lot. And that can't be easy to do, to constantly move your mouth and do full enunciation, and that's why I think, you hear it over and over again. If you see a lot of these little end bites or in between shots, and TCM, when you see a lot of these clips with movie actors or producers or directors speaking about how so many of the silent film stars didn't cross over into talkies, they could, what they were doing was so different.
It was way more theater acting.
Yes.
And I mean, it was not only
called overacting, but not, it wasn't.
Yeah, it was definitely be called overacting. Yeah, but also in terms of what was cinematic style, the awareness, I think, of what happens on film versus what happens in theater was not, I don't think everyone philosophically agreed on it yet. Because the filmmaking, there are not a lot of not that there aren't close-ups, there are, but they really choose the close-ups, and when the close-ups are in play, you're kind of watching a character. It's usually a character who's like looking off screen and then looks on and then does something else.
Different shot selection, and here you're getting.
But it's the same shot. It's just it's almost like different emotional acting.
You're right.
Choices.
When you're looking at maybe eyes or a turn of a gesture, here you have to get that shot of the mouth, because you really need to read the lips.
But even when they're not, what I'm saying is when they're not saying anything, there were a bunch of close-ups.
This is true.
The King of the Gypsies, he had a bunch of them where he was just doing something, doing something huge. And,
the gesticulating and the eyes popping and the staring and everything was overexerted, because again, there's no sound. Yeah,
it looks like theater. And as Ramon pointed out, the music was definitely. Ramon says, "Yeah, I think the music helps identify the scene and helps you concentrate on the film and the text." I completely agree.
Perfectly stated, Ramon.
And I've only seen once in a live setting silent movies with a live piano accompaniment. Okay, Matthew's saying his connection is erratic, so he'll type some comments to add to the conversation when they are relevant. All right, excellent. But yeah, I think that the music definitely helps. The other thing to pay really close attention to, and I really would have to look into this, and Wikipedia mentions the fact that if you, there are two cuts of, or two separate videos of Hunchback of Notre Dame on YouTube. One, at least, appeared to be straight up black and white, and the other one had some color to it, and like tonally. So if they were cutting between, like in Notre Dame, when they were cutting between an interior and exterior, the tone of the video is different. It looks like it's a different color, and it would cut back, even when they would cut back and forth. If it's a character looking through the window, when you see that character through the window from the interior view, obviously, it is one color, but when they cut to the same character outside that window, it's a different color.
Yeah, no, well, getting the lighting, you're talking about the technology now from 20s and you mean edit, you know, not know continuing continuity, or
it wasn't even so much continuity. It seemed to me to be an obvious decision by someone to change, because I know they didn't change film stock, because it was probably only one film stock on the planet. So then someone post said, let's make this color and this. I could see it for the night stuff and the day stuff. That was easy to
an atmospheric mood kind of thing.
Yeah, that was one thing that I was, you know,
to also convey the drama of the film. Yeah, because also you only have the black and white, and you know, so you notice things like and then some things were kind of ineffective but again, they're working within a lot of limitations, so you do what you can. For instance, there was a scene where they were, what was happening? I think it was a torture scene in the square, out in the square, in front of the church and Notre Dame, the cathedral church, not a church, cathedral, and they're pointing afterwards to a streak of blood in the ground, and I'm like, oh, that's ink, you know, and you know, what are they going to do? They don't have a lot to work with. You're not going to, red never worked, you know, and you can't depict red, but you have to go with something, pull something dark on the ground. We have, you know, so you just, but you work with what you can to get, convey different emotions, reactions, and
I don't know if that's the way it played when it was projected, or if that's just the way they made it.
We're looking at a copy of a print of a thing that's on YouTube.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and at times the visual was a little hard to look at, and at other times it was wonderful. And I'm looking, you know, again at some of the things, not to pick on it, to celebrate it. These large action scenes, these wide, giant crowds were just magnificent, and I'm like, oh my goodness, how many extras do they have? Everybody's moving, it looks like chaos, it looks like pandemonium. There's so many peasants in the street, and it was the big day of the you know, the King of Fools, and it just, you know, it was wonderful. For, you know, again
Matthew's typing, I've only seen this film once before, which is odd because I've seen The Phantom many times. He said, like The Phantom, this film has stunning production designs and compelling performances. I agree. Oh, and Levak said, live piano they used to do here on Friday night silent movies. Oh, wow, that sounds fantastic. Yeah, I saw it at
who was James on your Facebook was talking about their grandfather.
The mood book. His grandfather apparently was a silent movie accompanist, and had a mood book, which I'm guessing that the term, because it wasn't like sheet music went out with every movie and the piano players were learning, that was not the way it worked. The way it worked was they knew a bunch of stuff, and it was in a mood book, so they could just go by, okay, now it's sad music, now it's happy music, now it's adventure music, now it's this,
work it up.
And you got to work, and because you have an individual human being at each place, there was no way to centralize it. And again, all those people lost their jobs. Just keep that in mind.
Well, hopefully they found musicians.
No, they all lost their jobs. I'm sorry. Once you have sound,
no, I don't mean it. That they could go find a speakeasy somewhere in the Prohibition. I don't know. I'm just saying. Just, you know,
there is the hope that they could work for the mob.
You got to find a joint that's going to serve, you know, illegal booze somewhere. I'm trying to think. You know, these are places that would have movie theaters. So after the movie, you go get an illegal, you know, shot of bourbon somewhere, and chase down that popcorn and talk about that movie you just saw. You know, with sound. With sound,
but they're without all of them, without the mood books, without someone decide, and kind of a cool thing to think about, because I don't know, for some reason I'm getting an echo now. It's huzzah, it's always very fun.
Wait, we had the degradation of quality start to happen in Blob when they were going down.
Yeah, you're right.
And now.
Yeah, for some reason we're getting a little feedback. So if you guys are hearing feedback, sorry about that. Hopefully it'll stop. Oh, it seems to have stopped. Oh, and there it's back again.
Comes and goes.
Ramon says, one thing I like is the color of the film.
He points. What you noticed? Is that what you're? Yeah.
Well, I think that. Well, anyway, back to the music. To think that each theater had an employee who could play piano, who had a book of songs that they would pull out to play for every single movie is kind of, and for any regular moviegoer, I'm sure at some point you were like, yeah, I know this song. He plays this every week. This is the adventure song.
Well, you could do a drinking game to the movie theme music, you know, or something like that. And say, oh, here we are again. It's melancholy, sadness time, or, you know, here we are. It's the chase scene music, or, you know.
Yeah, Matthew's saying, I'm going to search for photos of the film production to get a better sense of the epic size of the set. I mean, they had to be gigantic. I mean, this thing, again, and because we watched 2 weeks ago, we watched Plan 9 from Outer Space. So to see Plan 9 from Outer Space, to see that level of filmmaking, and then to see something that was made 30 years earlier before, So for a filmmaker who has no sound and granted, you got sets and all the rest of it, I'm not going to take that away, but the basic storytelling stuff is still there. It is almost like Ed Wood never saw a movie.
I mean, he had things to look at and study, and that you have to pretty much go from point A to point B you got to connect the dots. But he was like, I'm doing it my way. And, you know, I think he stood there with, it's just so funny. I started watching, do you know, I rented Ed Wood the other day from the library.
Oh, did you? Oh,
but
cool.
I couldn't even watch it. I was like, you know what? I don't care anymore. He didn't play by the rules. And I stopped the movie. And Tim Burton's a fantastic filmmaker. And I'm watching Johnny Depp play the role. And I'm just like, you know, and I popped it out. And you know, and Martin Landau's in there and he's playing Bela Lugosi and all that. And, you know, just like, you know, I cage matched it. I'm like, poop. It's my new expression.
It's a new expression that is totally made up. I do a show called Song Request Cage Match, and it is a song request show, and everyone requests via Twitter. When I play the songs, everyone votes, and if enough people hate it, oh, thank you. We cage match it. I just press stop because
it's a fun way of saying, get it off. By the way, as an aside, and we have friends and fans here, how was Wednesday's show? We missed, Tachi and I missed it. Although I punched in. I did punch in I just couldn't hear a darn thing.
It was
the not currently with us artists show.
Yeah, we were doing dead musicians, which is a little harsh, but it worked. The musicians who were no longer with us. So there was, you know, we got the Prince and the Bowie, and Leonard Cohen just passed away recently, which also comes into play on So let's touch on this. Let's touch on it a little bit, since we're 25 minutes into the show and we're talking about Wednesday.
Wednesday,
which was the day after Tuesday. For those of you who are
Hi,
paying
Jill.
any attention to the news, Tuesday night was interesting. I was up almost. It felt like the whole night. I was riding.
What time
Twitter.
did you go to sleep? I couldn't. I thought I would stay up all night, and then I was believe it or not, I was tweet DMing with someone in France who said to me, Colleen, do you know the whole world is watching this with you? And it kind of was. And then it hit me like, what? And then I was like, yeah, they are. And then I just realized, I said, it started to go downhill. And then I said, I should watch this. And then I said, I can't. Well, I'm going to bed. I know what's happening. And I knew what was happening. And I knew, since Matthew's here, I knew since Brexit exactly what would happen. And it did. And so.
Yeah, it was. And it was still really hard to watch and sad to watch. And
it was very sad.
And it was. I was not watching any cable. I wasn't listening to anything. I was just running Twitter.
You were tweeting?
On my phone. I wasn't tweeting anything. All I was doing
watched on Twitter. Were you on Moments or just watching
I was writing the hashtags. I would just
writing hashtags. Yeah.
My comments.
Hey Matt, hi. Yeah, the whole world. It was.
Yeah,
to hear that, and it's not like. And I said to him, I said, I'm not arrogant or naive to think, or presumptuous, but it hit at that moment when I said, oh my goodness, yeah. I watch elections from other countries too. It just, it was just sort of like, yeah.
And SNL I think did a great job last night with the show. And
I heard they did the cold open was Hillary, Kate McKinnon's doing Hallelujah rewritten, which was kind of like, But it was, and nobody went for jokes.
You can't. There was nothing funny about it. And again, it was also night.
Yeah. At this point, you kind of have to. Yeah.
But Dave Chappelle rocked the hell out of the monologue. Chris Rock makes an appearance in one of the sketches, which it's a sketch that's after Weekend Update, which is usually when they start really going downhill.
Because they put the debtors.
And it's, granted, a bunch of people have to come up with a bunch of stuff in a relatively short amount of time with the news constantly changing.
You know what you got to watch as an aside?
Matthew's saying we are discussing the Hunchback of Notre Dame, a scrunch face of Washington. Lots of people are appealing for sanctuary. Honestly, Matthew, that's when I was watching the
sanctuary.
The riot during the Hunchback of Notre Dame or Dame, it definitely reminded me of what was going on now, and the idea of we're going to live in the aristocrats' palaces, and it was
Oh, how there's always a parallel, and I guess it's the perfect timing to just switch over a little bit, because the glass and marble palace a little bit. Is ironic, and peasants rioting ironic,
and also I just think for anybody who doesn't fit in with the, I can't say worldview because that is too nice, but the narrow American view of some Americans regarding who should be here and who should not, and all of that stuff, and the number of hate crimes that are going up, the number of white nationalist jackasses who feel emboldened to say the most ridiculous things on the planet. That is what the rest of us, we have to get in the way of that. We have to say no. Thanksgiving's going to be uncomfortable for a lot of Americans, and if any of you have racist relatives, raise your hand. Who doesn't? There's going to be some incredibly ignorant stuff said.
Go back to fighting about football or
4 years,
which the turkey to have. And
so the main thing is, I think for me, and that we're going to need a lot more stories. We're going to need a lot more art. We're going to need a lot more music. We're going to need a lot more comedy. And we're also going to need a lot more people doing the act local, think global thing. Like we can't fix the whole umbrella, but we can fix a couple of square inches around us. And if enough of us do that,
which is what we've always needed, because there's been people.
But we need it more now because the hate is so loud right now. And
well, think back though to 1861, when Abraham Lincoln became president, and what he did when he signed the Emancipation Proclamation, and he was a Republican. And I'm not comparing. You can't. History has seen brutal moments, and we're in a brutal moment right now. And we have to keep hoping. The civil rights but
the only difference between that time and this time is that the two-term black president who is leaving, coming in with a racist president replacing him, is the contrast is just a wee bit more because we are in the future now, and this. But
they would, and America wouldn't even give a chance to. No, it shouldn't be. But you know, we're still recovering or not recovering from 9/11, and this is people.
Oh yes, I agree.
You know,
I think that the door was open to get people really scared and to get people hating on each other, and to point other ways. And
so the hope has to continue. Thankfully, there was a parade here on my street today, and I didn't even know. It's lovely. It was. When you hear a marching band and bagpipes, you kind of wonder, am I at my own funeral? You know, and then you have to think.
I used to live near a firehouse, and they had they would do parades and stuff, so they would rehearse, and it was in an area of Boston called Fort Point Channel. It's all warehouses. They've been there since the beginning of the century, and that is where the firehouse is. And so the sound of the bagpipes and everything else would just, because they would rehearse on weekends mostly and at night, and the music would just bounce off absolutely everything in the neighborhood. And it was kind of like,
well, with warehouses,
yeah, exactly. It was kind of this odd, cool.
Well, that's my street. There's
character of the neighborhood.
There's buildings, and I hear big horns, and then the bagpipes right after, and I'm like, what? Because I thought they were practicing, because there is a parade next week for Thanksgiving with hot air balloon, balloons like. Big balloon, helium. And so I thought, and I'm hanging out my window, and it's on my Snapchat. And then so I said, oh no, it's a real parade. And I went down and I go, oh, isn't this great? And there's a tank, and there's veterans, there's an Iwo Jima, Morel, and and I'm like, a tank, and I go, wait, it's like a SWAT tank, and I'm like, what the hell happened now? But it was just kids marching, and it was love, and I felt that feeling coming. And all up and down my street there, they had flags on every single pole. And I was thinking back to when, in the early months and even years after 9/11, how in my neighborhood in Brooklyn, on every single street, and I'm not lying, every house had a flag out, and the community that there was, which, unfortunately, I kept saying, I hope this lasts, I hope this lasts, I hope this lasts. And it's kind of not so much now. And I hope, that with all this now, maybe some of that'll come back. I mean, the only thing that could come out of what's going on now is that people maybe sort of go, okay, let's start to regroup again. And we don't like this. And I don't know.
I think that when we tolerate racism, and it's just kind of, when you do that with the older generation, and you say, oh, well, they're just from a different time, and you think that worldview goes away with the time, not remembering that people reproduce and teach the same idiocy to other people.
It's learned.
So this is not an arc. It's kind of a circle. And
cycle.
The only, but in terms of just looking at it, it's I used to look at time like it was a graph that was going left, right at all times, and things would go up and down. And now what I'm seeing, and as Matthew's saying, we are back in the 1930s. there's definitely some parallels, and you need some people to hate, and once you got some other people hating on some other people, then you get them voting for somebody who hates on a bunch of other people, and that's when things get dangerous. But we're at a completely different point in history, and I think that is economic shock. Matthew's saying economic shock in the 1930s was the seedbed for fascism. And yeah, so we won't go too far into this, but we just wanted to acknowledge it. I think it's going to be, and it sounds sort of horrible, but I think it's going to be a great time for storytelling.
Everyone still has a voice, and that's to tell stories, and also write to your congressman. They're still there.
A lot of people are going to get more involved and more aware, and it's more stressful, and there's more anxiety, and people who are genuinely bummed out, and for good reason. But
the thing is not to sit and complain in a vacuum.
I agree.
Yeah, and to send it outward, and that's what, you know. And if you can't tell a story, if you can't write a letter to your congressman, put it into, this is what I love movies about. This is what I always have loved about movies and stories and television, is where it's the way some people choose to share their story, is the way to just put it into a, translate that into drama, translate into drama they can share with another person and say, well, this was how I experienced it. This is how I felt it, and convey that and share that with the masses. Because it sometimes does motivate people and give them a call to action, and give them a way to say, oh, you know, that really moved me, and now I figure out it gives me an idea of how I can share my frustration or my love or my passion or my emotion in a constructive way, rather than just being, you know, frustrated, silent, or unable to come up with my own idea to
and the other thing is to not, I don't think that anyone's, keep in mind that we're all, if you're debating someone who doesn't agree with you, you're debating emotions, and you are most likely not going to win that debate. And there's a lot, and it continues as it normally, it would continue after a Walking Dead episode. It would continue after a World Series or a Super Bowl. But I'm on social media a lot, and it looks like people are going really hard at each other.
Yeah, well, challenging emotions is, you know, it doesn't go anywhere. Challenging ideas with ideas. Sometimes, first you have to acknowledge one another and say, that's interesting. You know, a person wants to be heard about anything else, and the only way to possibly have them hear you is to acknowledge them and say, well, that's interesting. I hadn't thought about it, and that's important. I understand.
But also to just like throw in the towel and jump on the agree to disagree train and get the hell out of town, because you're, you know, short, and are you going to spend it? And I have a lot of friends and comedians I know that are on Twitter, and I'm just looking at their feeds, and they're just up there, just boom, 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 just nonstop. And it's like literally, because you throw out one thing with one hashtag on Twitter, and there is an army of jackasses
waiting
for you.
Right. And it's valid to me to express that. I don't know that Twitter's the place to do it, but yeah, but you know, you need to have a trusted place to release that, where it's safe, and get it out. No one's saying stuff it, but express it somewhere safe where you're not going to get pounded. And
the thing is, and if that's what, you know, and I've gone head to head with 1 billion people online about all kinds of stuff, and learned from experience that it's a complete waste of time. Also, Sherry Emily over on Facebook has a great comment. A lot of high school bull crap, I say. Some people need to get a grip. Never in my life have I seen such hate in the world. It's very sad. We need to come together as a nation and not against each other. I agree.
True.
And Matt Herman says, I remember satire of past presidents, and this one will be raw meat for the comedian.
Yeah,
I agree, because it's, you know, it is the reason that Fox News, their satire show tanks so hard is because comedy doesn't work that way. And it always has to be against power. It always has to be against the thing that's, it's the natural order of comedy to make fun of power. And what is useful about comedy is exactly that. And because
it has to be non-specific. It has to be, there's a fine line to.
But it also can be extremely specific. The funniest sketch the funniest sketch in SNL, in my opinion, was Dave Chappelle and Chris Rock makes a cameo towards the end of it, but it's Dave Chappelle sitting around a bunch of white people with Hillary signs behind them, and they're like play by play, like they just keep changing the time, and then they come back to the scene, and then they go to the next half hour, and then they come back to the scene, and an hour later, and they come back to the scene, and it ends with, you know, a lot of truths being told and a lot of laughter from Chris Rock and Dave Chappelle, because they're pointing out, like, yeah, you didn't know this was where you lived. Like, it's like, you know, have you been anywhere in this country? Have you seen what's going on out there? And it's yeah.
I read about that one. It's yeah, they recapped it in the New York Times, and it just sounded like, yeah, you know, they knocked it out of the park. And it's just kind of, but just pointing out really what kind of a lot of people already know. But, well, a lot of people don't know. Some people know. And let's share with the class, you know. So, you know, because sometimes you have to put a magnifying glass on things for people and shine a little light, you know, and just say, this would be helpful if you could, maybe you didn't notice. And then, because some people will have an aha moment, you know, and then maybe spread it with some other people, and you get that domino effect a little bit, and otherwise not, and that's okay, because those people probably aren't watching anyway. So what, you know? So you spread a little awareness.
Matthew's saying the collective noun for jackass is a plague or horde, not an army. Vox saying, have a great day off to enjoy the sunshine. Thank you. There's going to be so much sunshine. It's coming. Got to keep a little sun on your face. There's a Richard Pryor line. Yeah, see you, Vox. The great thing with this movie is watching what because the main character, it's called the Hunchback of Notre Dame for a reason, because that is the main character, and he is very much an outsider. He's deaf, he's half blind. Obviously, he has a hunch. He's not the most attractive gentleman on the planet, and is treated as such, and so he kind of has a view, like rightly so, he just seems to hate just about everybody. They don't treat him. Yeah, because he has been treated so poorly, and he is also a slave of what is the character's name? I gotta pull my character list up again. The guy that's trying to score with Esmeralda, who gets this whole thing rolling.
Jahan?
Is it Don Claudio?
Oh,
no, Jihan.
Jihan. Yeah.
Jahan, yeah. So Jahan's character is the one who is operating with the most, you know, he wants to get the girl, and he doesn't want to have her agree with him, apparently. So he's doing everything. And also there is a side story that, or I don't know, it's almost like a C story that, and another thing to point out, there was a flashback in this. And again, I'm confusing characters, so please jump in.
Yeah,
anybody. It's the woman who is in the prison.
Madame de Gondolier. No.
Yeah.
Madame de no.
She's the woman who has her daughter stolen from her by the Gypsies.
That was, I think, Madame de Gondolier. Okay. Yeah.
One of those.
It's her.
Mrs. D. We'll call her Madame D. So Madame D is she has it's almost like there is a parallel between her hatred of the world and of the Hunchback's hatred of the world.
Yep.
That 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 she had her kid taken from her, and she really hates gypsies because that's who did it, and the Hunchback of Notre Dame, who hates everybody because he has been treated really poorly his entire life. Oh, no worries, Ramon. I should have done it too. It's a lot of and as Matt Carmen's pointing out, he was bullied, and I think it was sort of an interesting parallel to kind of see what was going on with that and what happened in the world and what was going on with the Hunchback of Notre Dame at the same time. So the other thing,
tough times.
We don't find Matt Carmen saying those darn gypsies. So in this flashback, we see the Madame D put a necklace around with some kind of a medallion, which we then see Esmeralda with, and she's wearing this under her clothes, so no one can really see it most of the time. It comes into play a couple of times with the romance with the new King of the Guard, who later gets stabbed. There was a couple of stabbings in this very stabby movie.
Well,
there was not a lot of
the knife was the weapon of choice back then. Plus that getting lit lashes was, you couldn't.
It was the getting lashes.
The getting of
plus don't forget that hot lead. That was a beauty. The hot lead, and then you really got to enjoy when you can take a giant piece of lumber and just throw it on people. That also very useful weapon.
Well, if you've got some wood handy around, why not toss it? I'm just saying.
Exactly.
I'm just saying that, if the worst you got is a lot of splinters and a bad, bump somewhere. So really, you would have a whole lot fewer problems today as well. I mean, you got an extra piece of firewood around and you've got a problem. I don't know. Okay, don't throw firewood, people.
Don't throw firewood or molten wood.
Or molten lead.
So this is toward the end of the movie when so we'll go through a little bit of setup time. So Esmeralda ends up palling around with the new King of the Guard, who brings her to a ball and lies to, I guess, a queen, somebody important, the lady of the house, and says that she is like a princess from Egypt. And that is when the King of the Gypsies comes in and says, "Oh, hey, Santos," storms in like they're going to save. I guess they're going to save her at that point in the story because they think that she has been kidnapped by this member of the guard because she's from the Gypsies. So what would she possibly be doing there? And also she didn't have the clothes, which what's his head with the hair. Don't lie. I was telling Kathy, I did the two shows that I did in the 90s, live shows. The tech director I worked with, his name was Eric Berg. He's still alive, and he had the same haircut as the King of the Guard, or that long hair that was just kind of like, it was more heavy metal, but it had that same kind of wavy thing. But it was essentially
so it's like post hairband sort of rock kind
yeah.
Oh, wow.
It was totally like the heavy metal kind of a thing.
Yikes.
So she is romantically involved. I mean, he's chasing her, but she is also like, he is playing her like he seems to be quite the player, and I think he's rolling through gypsy women on a regular basis, and she, I don't know if she initially doesn't sense it, but she. But he is kind of a cad. When you first see him, he is just a player. I'm hating both the player and the game.
I got you. I feel you. Keep on.
Right.
You got it. Let's moving on. Yes.
Yeah, he's a little. Yeah, he is wearing the equivalent of Axe body spray back in the day. Oh, and yes. And he is coming on.
And carrying a real axe.
He actually has an axe.
It is what it is. Yeah, Axe and Max. He's Axe and
So he's coming on to Esmeralda, and and what is it? She tells the story, I guess, of being kidnapped or whatever, and then he feels sort of bad. And it seems like but not really, but it doesn't look, it looks like she's not going to be a one night stand all of the sudden, and that's when it's like, come to the ball with me.
Yeah, he kind of backed off a little bit, and he pumped the brakes, let's just say, in today's parlance. So
yeah, actually that would be it seemed like he had he was starting to feel bad, or
a little bit. Yeah.
Yeah, there was something going on with him that it seemed his true love blossomed.
No, he kind of, or some mommy issues came up. I'm not sure. They couldn't. It's a silent movie. We couldn't get too far into the whole psychological moment, but he definitely issues.
And there's also
yes, that's what reality. Matthew just raised a good point, though. In all truth, where they were talking about.
Okay. Yeah.
Go ahead.
King of the Gypsies is a nod to the medieval and Wren concept of the king of the beans / king of fools. This is really one of those shows that we would really love to have Matthew on, because he knows all kinds of like historical stuff.
Well, they did mention.
I can comment on like, man, those sets were good.
Well, no, but they did mention the and I've stood in front of Notre Dame Cathedral, so I can say the scale here. Where did it go? I don't know if this helps a little bit, because there's the towers of Notre Dame Cathedral, and you see how big it is, and then you see in one of the opening sequence, Quasimodo's kind of scaling down the cathedral with ease. So this sort of puts it in. This is an aerial shot of Paris. Not that easy to really do, but the sets look good because they give you detail of the doors and everything in front, which have all the
everything.
It looks really good when you're standing up in front of it. But anyway, what were we talking about? We were talking the King of Fools. They did put I didn't forget the movie. The King of Fools. They did put from time to time in those cards. In between the title. I want to say title cards. It's not a title card. Dialogue cards. They did reference it from time to time, but so it's there. But if you don't know what that means in historical, references and what that's talking about, then it gets lost. And it's a historical novel. It's a period piece. So putting that in context is yes, we could use Matthew. It's
definitely.
I haven't read the book.
The two American movie fans got nothing on this thing.
Yeah. I've been there. I've visited the
been there. I haven't even been
Place des Vosges where Victor Hugo lived. It doesn't help.
The one way that you cut corners on sets is that you don't build them to scale, and it doesn't look like that was what they did. Like, it looks like everything is one for one or really, really close to it. And the way that Lon Chaney just swings on everything, his comfort level, and even at the scene when Esmeralda, it's towards the end of the movie when Esmeralda is provided the law of sanctuary. It's so great when the priest or bishop or whatever the hell he is.
He would have.
What would he have been?
Swearing with regards to a clergy person.
Whatever the hell, the priest or the bishop or whatever.
To talk about politics, and here you are. Fire is going to come upon you.
Before I get struck by lightning. So that guy was telling a bunch of soldiers, like, do you not respect the law of sanctuary? And they were all like, oh, right.
Yeah,
totally.
Out with you from this place. Because that's
when have you seen
let
me just get to the one thing about the Lon Chaney swinging around the set. So when it gets to when he is so happy that Esmeralda is the inside being protected Everything's going to go great. And he's so happy about it that he rings the bell. And just watching the scene. Now, a bunch of things that I was catching, but I'm watching like, okay, what is this set made out of? How does this work? What is real and what is not real? And so looking at what he was doing with that bell.
There wasn't a lot of CGI in this one.
No, there was no CGI, but watching what he was doing with that bell, where he's so comfortable at what, I'm sure he was only 6 feet off the ground or 5 feet off the ground, whatever, but his comfort on that, at that height with that giant object. And then he jumps on the bell and he's like, there's a handle on the bell and he's swinging back and forth on the bell itself. And I was just like, that is what's, for me, that's what really, because the makeup is kind of, it's 1923. The makeup's kind of chintzy and
his costume was great, but it was, the physicality.
But by today's standards, but everything he did physically as that character, him jumping on the bell,
phenomenal.
All the rest of it, I thought, I thought it was.
I'm like, was he a circus, actor before? Because you see Burt Lancaster. He had acrobatic experience and performing in that venue before, so you can say, okay, well, there's crossover, and some people will go through. Oh, we got the echo back. At least I do. Yeah. Or they'll go through extensive training, and if this had a budget, maybe they did that for him and sent him off to the circus. Because wow, could he move? And I'm thinking that's commitment. Just the nimbleness with which he was up and down and scaling. It's like he had
and climbing on everything, but it's not only that he's doing all of that, but he's also maintaining the character, the physicality of the character. So for him to
stay
to stay
focused,
Hunchback, still, like, he looked genuinely graceful.
I agree.
Matt Carmen's saying Quasimodo was an interesting name for the Hunchback. Yeah, because I was the one thing about watching a silent movie was that it was a couple of good times, but I was yelling back on the screen, Quasi, where are you, man? What's going on, Quasi?
Where you at?
For help. The bad guy's coming.
It is. It's very, and that's, therein is the genius of Hugo as a writer and his novels, and why Les Mis is still playing on Broadway. And, it's just these characters themselves. You've got not just French characters, but they've got the gypsy type characters, which is a melange of various ethnicities in Europe. And so the names are hard, some of them, and it's a complex. So kudos to everyone who watched, and congratulations and well done, because it makes you great cinephiles and movie fans and even literary fans, because it's
and also just I think again, what I love about doing the show is that we do it for the people. We do it because we love doing the show. We love talking about the movies. The show is now over a year old, but also there is something about the mindset of watching a movie where it's not, and I do this all the time, especially this week. I'll tell you a couple of things I was watching this week, because I'm like, I just want to watch something that will not make my brain go.
Calgon, take me away.
Yeah. So I understand the escapist trash, wanting to, like,
dude, where's my car?
I don't. Well, it's not even. Well, no, maybe not that bad. But I don't want to. I don't want to have a dramatic emotional experience watching a story right now. So I was there, and you can find it on Facebook. I tripped over it, and they've and a bunch of people are doing it. They've crossed a couple of wires, and they have a Facebook Live going with video that's just playing, and they will play. I think it's Cartoon Go. I could be wrong, but they'll play a 4-hour live stream of Tom and Jerry cartoons with no credits. And it just and because they're doing it live,
Tom chasing
it archives,
hitting the wall and all that, and
for 4 hours.
Let's go.
And the way they've edited them, they've taken all the end credits and beginning credits. They just go story. And I'm just sitting in bed. And what amazed me is, like, when I was a kid, I watched a lot of bad television, waiting for the good television to start. And sometimes I just watched bad television because it was something to do. And so I watched a lot of Tom and Jerry waiting for like the 4:30 movie to start, or waiting for whatever the next, like the next thing to happen, and to have connecting. And so you start. I didn't realize how many, because I haven't watched Tom and Jerry since, I don't know, late 70s, probably.
Not at all.
80s,
not
like,
even the tiny.
No, like there was no there's no reason to it.
What about Bugs Bunny?
Like when I was like, no, because
you gotta get with
when I moved out, I didn't have cable. The television wasn't really,
and there
I
was
didn't
no
have time.
YouTube.
So and it was and there was no YouTube. So anyway, so to sit down and watch this the other night, and absolute escapist trash. It doesn't get any more simple than a cat chasing a mouse.
Good stuff.
I remembered so many bits, so many tiny little things that like I haven't crossed in front of my brain, and just to see it again was
kind of awesome.
Kind of awesome. I have to, yeah. Matt Carmen saying there was a Japanese band with the same name, Tom and Jerry. I don't know.
I'm not seeing comments again. I've got to pop out of here and pop back. I apologize if I'm missing comments, people.
Oh, no worries. What I've been doing is just leaving. I go to my Facebook page and I leave I'm looking at the main page, and I can see the latest comments that way.
It was working until I saw everything, and now I can't. I got popped out, and
it changes.
I know. Gee whiz, I see. Has anyone seen? There was a 19. Yeah, Matt. There was. I don't know, but yeah, it's important.
So anyway, Matt, that was the Japanese jazz band called Tom and Jerry. No, I want to.
No, I'm not seeing that. There was a top. I guess that's a good name for a. Why not? There's a good name for a band, Tom and Jerry. I'm trying to think if I heard.
But if you. Oh, and Matt says he's getting internet interruptions.
Yeah, that's why a movie like this would be something to help. Not everyone's going to like any movie, but this movie would definitely take people out of their head, and it's good. It's a good enough story to, if you can get.
And I think it's also something that maybe we need to think about a little more in the future is a Japanese band named Quasimodo. Oh, that's a great name for a band.
That is.
Thinking about scheduling our movies so we're not doing like The Intruder. You know what I'm saying? So we're not. Remember when we did the William Shatner movie?
Yeah. Oh, that one.
Yeah. So maybe we go a little lighter for a while.
Here's the thing, and I agree. The challenge is finding on YouTube light fare.
Oh yeah.
It's the quality might go down, but we can do that. But it's hard.
Well, and I'm right, and I'm still, like, for me, film noir is still escapist to me. You know, it's good guy, bad guy.
There's plenty of noir, so it would be, it can get repetitious. But if you tell me what that's okay.
I'm just putting it out as an idea to maybe not like seek out stories that will that where Tachi will just be like, I can barely get through. That's what I'm trying to do.
That wasn't deliberate. It's just.
Oh no, I know that.
Yeah, I hear.
Actually, Sherry's saying she's here in background. I'm going to hit refresh just for the heck of it and pop right back in.
Yeah, Sherry, we're having a little. We're not sure if it's Huzza or could be Facebook.
Because we're okay.
Want me to? I'll refresh. Should I refresh?
Yeah, just for kicks, it can't.
Just for kicks.
What's the worst that happens? And hopefully you can get back in real quick. If you need to be invited, oh no, you're fine.
Hello.
Greetings and welcome. I don't know, because we do a long show and we're pushing to another platform, and I think sometimes
sounds a little better. No, I have an echo.
I think sometimes the technology just, it's not perfect, but it's
hopefully
and it's not free.
Off.
Yeah, I think because I sent an
email.
For those who don't know, we started this show on a platform called Blab, which used to be located at blab.im. And it very similar to the setup you're seeing now. You could have 4 people talking. It was centralized discovery. It was absolutely free, which Huzzah isn't. We're paying to be on here. And provide a great show to you. And
we love you.
And then we moved to Huzzah, and Sherry's saying it's much better. Good.
Awesome.
So we moved to Huzzah when it looked like Blab was going to go, and then Blab shut down completely. Huzzah has not tweeted since September. So for all intents and purposes, that is their way of saying, we're going out of business really soon. Because you don't stop talking to your community unless something's bad is happening. And that it happened with Meerkat, it happened with Blab. Vine went away, not that it was an active part of the community at that point, or the platform. And that's the other thing, not to get off on a rant here, not to quote Dennis.
Oh, rant off.
This whole idea of Snapchat community. People say Snapchat community. And there is and YouTube community, Facebook community, Twitter community. There is no such thing as
one big community.
There is no community. There is no singular community on any platform anywhere on the internet unless it's tiny, because there's too many people on it. So you only have your community on the platform. You are not joining a community. You are creating your connections to a community and your own community. And I think the other thing to keep in mind with social media, especially with what is going to be going on in the world, is Matt Carmen saying Facebook is publicly owned, going to be around a while. Yeah. Should we rattle off the number of publicly owned companies that no longer exist? Shall we? Facebook is going to be around for a while, but but I really don't. Yeah, they're worth a lot of money, but everybody's playing, much like the Uber, they're playing the game of like, hey, we'll be profitable one day.
Right. There's conversations there, but we don't even have them.
Right. And Matthew's saying, seek out new civilizations. Yes, exactly. And Matt Carmen saying, I have many communities on Facebook. Exactly. I think that's the thing that we have to keep in mind with all this, that when you're on social media, you create your neighborhood and you create who you want to spend time with and who you don't want to spend time with. And that is also freedom of speech. So keep that in mind.
There's only one internet.
Oh yeah, Matt saying a while is not defined. That is correct. You are a while, especially if you're talking centuries. It's really hard. Yeah, this has been going on for a while.
The internet's still kind of young.
Yeah, kind of. When Jerry's saying there's a good to Facebook and bad to Facebook, but all in all, it keeps us all connected. I like the unity of it. Oh yeah, and I think we create that unity.
Up to the
so
people.
the other thing with Hunchback and Notre Dame, in reading up on the notes, is that apparently the director was using like the old-timey bullhorn, like no electronics, just a cone that you would yell into to make you louder.
Oh my God, with all those people.
Exactly. So he got a radio amplifier speaker that apparently at that point was like $7,500, just so he could direct.
Budget buster.
Because there was so, I mean, if you look at the costumes, now I'm just going to pull this.
I was wanting some of those hats.
Yeah, that was, let's talk about the hat. The ladies' hats. Now,
hello.
It would be great to Matthew, if you can hear us and if you can contact us through the magic of the internet as you're traveling across the United Kingdom. What to do with those hats? The ladies' hats, because it was both in the flashback and in the current times.
Yes.
Yeah, those hats. It was almost like two.
They were
like
conical.
two tubes or cones.
That was the one. That was the one. And I'm thinking, so she's wearing that. I'm like, look, girlfriend is doing a lot of work wearing that hat. There's got to be a function to it, not just a form. Although that said, I have worn some things that really had no practical purpose whatsoever, but it just looked really, really good. So I don't know, would you wear something that went all the way up had a cone on your head, had two cones combined together, and a long flowing scarf down the back. I don't know.
And also, there's no way you're going to clear a doorway unless all the doorways are huge. Like you would have to look up to get your head to go lower.
Yeah, you're kind of having to duck and point it and aim it. You know, you need navigation for that, basically, to get it in and out of rooms. Or do you just wear it into the ballroom and then your ladies take it off you when you?
I mean, I don't know any. And again, Matthew will be able to answer this question, but I'm guessing those hats never came off. Like I'm guessing those hats were like hair.
Well, you could have on the back. There could have been something where it was tied on. Even I mean, none of this stuff was.
Oh yeah, that part.
That I know. Yeah,
right, but I just mean in terms of like what the style is. Like if you're putting on a huge hat that's got all this stuff and everything, and you're in public or in private being a queen or whatever the hell you're being an aristocrat, I'm guessing you're wearing your hat all the time.
Oh yes, no, you never had your head uncovered.
Yeah.
I know this much. I know when you're in the nobility or in the royalty, and I don't know that she was royal, but she would have been somewhat aristocratic.
Yeah.
You were seen as closer to God, or in the case of royalty, definitely representing God. You were anointed by God. So you kept your head covered. You were sort of, you know, it's like an anointing, and it was symbolic to have the crown, to have the covering on your head, to, you know, it was all part of the regalia. So that much.
And there's nothing practical about it.
It's not meant to be. It's a symbol.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's exactly nothing practical, but just for the people, they have to read part of the adornment, part of the ornamentation,
and also
part of them.
Yeah. Look really tall.
Well, that's it. If you fall short in the height department, no pun intended, actually, and you're of the male persuasion, it gave you those couple extra inches you needed, aside from lifts in the shoes. So, and for the ladies, it didn't matter, but then they probably would lop off part of your big hat. I'm thinking, but yeah. So all these things, you know, because I have read a lot of biographies of different kings and real kings and queens. I haven't read this book, but yeah, and so I know that the anointing and the crowns and all that sort of all come into the symbolism. I hope. I was gonna say. I thought Matthew commented. I'm like, oh God, I hope I didn't get it wrong. I think it's right. So.
Yeah, we'll get graded on the show.
Yeah. Oh, and I'm echoing again. Sorry, Sherry. I don't know what else I can do. Did it stop? I hope it stopped.
And Matt Carmen's saying too many birds died for feathered hats. It's true. And
a lot of times though they could pick them up and dye them and clean them. They didn't. They don't. I don't know that they murdered them. Is Tachi coming?
Maybe not. I've sent an invite.
Oh, sometimes her Wi-Fi.
We're getting the stream was unable to connect due to a network error.
I see that. Yeah.
Tachi, can you hear us? Oh, now we're going to have 4
double Tachis.
Yeah, it's doing that. Tachi, if you hit refresh, and then I'll send another invite.
You know, I remember this is what was happening back when I was in another state, and I was seeing the same error in the early days.
Yeah, but we haven't had this in a while.
We haven't had this in a long time. And then I had Wi-Fi glitches actually back then.
We were also having this happen when Huzzah was having problems. Again, we will probably be looking for a new platform.
A new platform, but they were denying that it was problems and saying no. Right. So I don't know.
Yeah, now we have. Yeah, it says make sure your connection isn't blocked by a firewall. So I have no idea what any of that means. Right, I'm gonna hit refresh and see if that does anything. At least get rid of these windows.
Yeah. Okay, they'll be back in. The windows are still here. We have 6 windows now.
Well, I only have 3 after I refresh.
I'll try to refresh now. Okay.
And I don't. Tachi says she sees us. Yeah, so I think it's Tachi. Maybe hit refresh again, and I'll send out another invite. It's the Russian hackers. Yeah, they're after our show. How dare you talk about stuff?
No, we didn't say one bad thing about Russia.
know, we got.
But I found rubles today. I actually found some Russian rubles.
Oh, nice. That might be useful soon.
But I don't have a lot of. I only have 300, and they may not be much. They're tiny little rubles.
Oh, nice.
Really, I don't know.
Fancy money.
No, I think it's worth probably -1 cent, and possibly. But
so for whatever reason, Tachi is not appearing.
No,
I can't hit stop this broadcast, so I don't know what's going on.
Oh, it says cone hat was Matthew said cone hat was specific to French nobility. Yeah, that was Madame de.
Oh, okay, cool.
Madame de. Her name was Madame.
Yeah, Madame D.
Madame D.
But also Esmeralda was wearing that when she was supposed to be the Prince of Egypt or Princess of Egypt or a princess from Egypt or Egyptian princess, however you say it.
Egyptian princess, which would have been a princess, not a prince, or she was going to be.
Right, I know.
Unless there's something subliminal going on here.
No, that's a different story.
Different movie. Just saying.
All right, I'm going to hit refresh one more time and see if I can get Tachi in.
Okay, we're trying here. Matt says, "Great, refreshing of the windows." Got a lot.
We're back.
And we're back.
Thanks for everybody on the Facebook at the beginning of the face.
How are we doing?
Yeah, remote.
How am I doing?
Refreshing of the windows. So we're back to 2 people, at least at this end.
I see 3 windows.
Oh, I still see 2. So we
okay.
Oh yeah, what is the movie next week? Let's talk about the movie next week.
Next week we have it should be Clear Cut, which we had DM'd about a movie with Native American themes since Thanksgiving, American Thanksgiving.
Oh, right.
So I went rummaging through YouTube and found a couple. Well, actually, there's quite a few. There's some native. Hey, Tachi's back!
Hey, Tachi, welcome. Yay! It's working. Magic.
Oh, finally. I'm like, what's going on? Because I could see and hear you guys, but you couldn't see and hear me.
Now we do.
I don't. Yay. Yeah, everything's fine now. Welcome to Huzzah, everybody. Tachi, how are you? Greetings. Welcome. And you guys were hanging out in New York City.
We were. Yeah, good times.
Yes, the second time we got to see each other in real life.
Yep. Second time, less than.
Same time zone, different state.
Same time zone, different state. We're state hopping. We'll have to pick a new state. Next time, another state.
So Tachi, why were you in New York? Because I know why, but I want you to tell us why, and I want to hear about cool cameras because I missed those streams.
Hey.
What were you doing in New York?
I was at the NAB show New York, and NAB stands for the National Association of Broadcasters. So it's funny because I actually broadcasted from there earlier this year, from the Vegas show earlier this year, if you remember. And so Vegas is the big show, and that's where they have, if you've ever been to the Las Vegas Convention Center, they have several halls. And so the thing is huge, and about 100,000 people go to the Vegas show. The New York show is a lot smaller, so it's like a subset. Picture one hall out of the one in Vegas. That's what this one was. But there were some really, really interesting sessions that I went to. There was one called Gals in Gear, and it was women filmmakers. So women filmmakers and media makers, and trying to do things like breaking the glass ceiling, etc. in the film industry. So that was really good, and a lot of them had worked on some major motion pictures, and they kind of shared their experiences being women working in the industry. So that was a really good session. I also went to a session with Mario Armstrong and Al Roker. Yeah, there was a whole live stream conference that was part of NAB New York. And, they just finished the live fronts, which is like the upfronts for streaming. Right. And when that's really where, so any type of fronts is where advertisers are connected with programming. So basically, it's a whole bunch of advertisers that are looking to get connected or sponsor programming. So for the first time ever, they did this with live streaming in October in New York. So they talked a little bit about that. They talked about their projects. And a really interesting one, at the risk of getting too political here, was Soledad O'Brien, who's a former CNN anchor and has Starfish Media, and Soledad O'Brien and the president and CEO of NAB, who is Gordon Smith, who was a former senator, I believe, for the state of Oregon. So, of course, the first question they got on stage, Soledad said, "What happened?" And so there was a conversation about that. And I did go up to the second floor of the Javits Center where Hillary Clinton should have had her celebration. Yes, it was really sad. So.
Indeed, we touched on it earlier and ran some people out of the room, but but understandably so. Yeah. The way they do the TV upfronts, which I don't know, the TV upfronts are a little bit, well, there's two things. There's the Television Critics Association thing that happens twice a year, right, and then the television upfronts, which are almost the exact same thing, because they're just trying to like get people to go, hey, this is good, right? Hey, you want to buy ads on this?
Exactly.
And Al Roker has been huge in live streaming since the get-go.
Yes.
Oh,
he's like on his own. I remember Al Roker Labs being in streams of mine on Meerkat. Going back and forth with them on Twitter was really, and he's still doing tons and tons of stuff, but he's now, it seems like he is recognizing the opportunity and kind of creating his own network.
Yeah, he has the first live streamed network, basically, and he has a lot of, and Mario Armstrong is one of the shows. The Never Settle show is going to be on his.
That's so exciting, Mario's. When you were interviewing him, describing the show. Oh my goodness, that's exciting.
Yeah, it's super exciting because, and the funny thing is that even though Mario has been in the game for a while because he's on the Today Show, he's done CNN, but he's, for all intents and purposes, a person that is trying to find his space in the new world of live streaming, which I think he has managed to carve out quite a niche. But, these are people that we know from live streaming, whereas we don't know, well, some people you may know from the quote unquote terrestrial TV world, but it's not like live streaming. These are people that have probably been in your streams, like you said, Joe Wilson. You've been in their streams, you've talked to them, they call you out by name, like it's Romper Room, which is why I love live streaming so much, because you really get to know folks. So it's just amazing what he's been able to do. In fact, I remember because Al Roker likes to cook as well. So he used to do a lot of different cooking segments on Meerkat. I remember that, with different chefs and things. And I'm like, he's really taking this to a whole, different level. He's got somebody holding the damn phone. The rest of us are struggling. So
Al can do anything.
No, absolutely. And he has years of experience behind him. He has a crew, whereas the rest of us are schlepping our own stuff. But it's okay, and I think that's the beauty of live streaming, because there is room for everybody. There's room for the person that the regular industry said no to. There's room for you, and there's also room for industry people, because guess what, in the industry you're not always told yes either, unless you're certain people. So there's room for everybody, and I think that's why I like live streaming so much.
I agree, and I think what's going on with live streaming. I don't know. Listen to that echo. Oh, I think I figured out what it is. If I'm on the Huzzah, if I have the Huzzah browser open while I'm talking, it seems to deal with the noise cancellation better than if I'm on the Facebook one looking at comments. Just a theory. So one thing I did want to ask you is, there were some cool cameras. What was there something going on with the cameras that was different than before?
Not really.
Okay.
The big thing though that I noticed, I'm actually writing an article for the Burton Wire on this, which I will finish today. And Senga, if you're watching, and the big thing that I noticed was 360/VR is still a really big thing. That people still have drone fever, and people are really exploring this 360 VR space. So what I did see in terms, there were a lot of cameras, and of course Canon was there, Panasonic was there, Blackmagic was there. So all the usual suspects in terms of cameras were there. But what I did notice is that the 3D housings for GoPros, those were something you saw all over the place, because 360 is really starting to take off now, and take off by telling stories. One thing that I can't stand about new technology is sometimes the focus is on the technology and not on the storytelling. Yeah, it's cool, but it gets old after a while. Okay, I know I can see all around me. What story can you tell me that incorporates this? And so I think we're starting to see more projects. I saw some of people that were actually telling stories, whether it's documentary or scripted, that incorporates 360 and VR. And this is where the coolness actually begins, not just in the technology, but what creators can do with the technology. So that was a big thing camera wise, but not so much anything new. There was, and I can't remember now, but there were a couple of new cameras that they had out there, but most people wait until NAB Vegas before they unveil most of their things. Or sometimes the CES, the Consumer Electronics Show, sometimes you'll see some stuff there, but not so much of the broadcasting. Or South by Southwest in Austin. That's another place. So,
yeah, I think CES, which is in a couple of months.
Yeah, in January.
Yeah, we'll see the next wave.
A lot of things released at Photokina in Berlin too, which is, you know, my friend Mokhtar in France was there. And so there's a lot of newer Nikons entering the space at a really low price point for 360 and really, really affordable. And it's coming out at before Christmas. In fact, it might be out already, I think, here in the US. And so probably that was at the Javits show, I think. I forget, it's got an odd name. I don't even remember now the name of the key mission.
Yes, I think I saw them.
So it's really coming down and becoming accessible. But Photokina debuted a lot of products, I think it was a month or so ago in Berlin. So then next will be CES and
cool.
Yeah.
And Matthew's saying 360 camera is really useful for sharing heritage properties, especially for people in wheelchairs who can't get upstairs. Yeah, exactly. There's not a lot of handicapped accessible anything in history.
No.
Well, the drones help with that too, because they do flybys, and there's a picture of a chateau in France with that, and many things with, they do flyovers with the GoPros and all these others. So, and they can increase that with the 360s now, drop down into some courtyards and it's.
And yeah, and I think that part of the 360 thing is great, but as Tachi pointed out,
what stories can you tell? Mm-hmm.
Well, it's not what stories can you tell, but like I get it. So I can see 360. Like after a while, it's just like, okay, so what else happens?
Well, that's it. What story how does that matter to me? Why should I buy that? And how is it going to enhance the story because not everything, it's hype. It's just like, go buy the Polaroid back in the day. And then it's like, really, you look at this Polaroid a year or 5 years later, who cares? You know, it's not a great camera. It's not a great picture. The Times now, the New York Times is running 360-degree videos every day for about 60 to 90 seconds per, and you do it, and they're not all of them not great. Some of them are better than others. Some of the stories I could care less. The technology is not awesome, and so it's sort of like doing it for doing its sake. You know, does the technology lend itself to every single story? Not really. Can I spin around every single time? Do I want to? No, not even a little bit. So.
And I think some of that is just behavior. I think it's much like selfies and live streaming and everything else. When it first started, it has that like, well, it has to be developed more. It has to be more part of the day. And I think before everyone was staring down at their phones, you know, social media still existed, but it wasn't ever going to hit the mass that it needed to be what it is now, which is all powerful.
Well, to this and to almost everything in life or in technology or stories, I would say IBM used to have a motto. I don't know if this is still their motto, and it was once a trivia question on Trivial Pursuit. And it was, what's their motto for IBM? And I would say this one word, and it applies to so many things. Think. Think before you snap a selfie, run a 360 or apply, say, just because it's better, faster, newer, this, that. Does it accomplish what?
Yeah, because IBM had that motto while they were going out of the server business and didn't know it.
Exactly.
Because they were like, think about selling more servers to people who have contracts with us, and ignore all these the strength of a personal computer, and then lay off thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of people, including my mom. But hey, let's go, IBM. Let's talk about it. You're back now, and China owns a giant chunk of you. Matthew's also saying 360, also very useful for filming in fragile environments such as Egyptian tombs. I bet. Oh yeah. So now that we've got through the NAB, what did you think of the film, and had you seen the film prior to this most recent viewing?
No, I had not seen it before.
Same.
The thing is, it's really difficult. First of all, don't watch it when you're tired.
Yeah,
because
it will knock you out.
You will be knocked out. I mean, and this is the first time, and not that it was not interesting. It's just that a different way of watching film than what we're used to. We don't go around watching silent films all the time. And then, so it's like, don't lay down. And don't
do not get comfortable.
Yes, don't get comfortable.
Sit upright, have your pencil sharpened.
Exactly. Best to approach this like it's a testing situation, honestly, and then you'll get the full brunt of it. You know what? I actually enjoyed the difference from the typical way that we've been watching films. Obviously, they're sound films. No, they're not necessarily. Excuse me, not necessarily always color. We've had a lot of black and white films as well, but I'm enjoying this and looking at how they dealt with things like blocking and how they dealt with dialogue and how the movements had to be that much bigger because I have to express that I'm saying this even if I'm not, and then the slide comes next. The next frame is what is being said. One thing that I also really noticed is the dialogue and the explanations were like reading poetry. So it was so well written in King's English or Queen's English that not that other dialogue needs to be that way, but it was appropriate. It was very appropriate. Exactly. It was quite appropriate. And but as appropriate as it was, I was kind of taken out of it. If you remember that first big scene where they're at the festival, and there are a whole bunch of them, that to me felt like a movie set of a whole bunch of actors in costume. So usually the goal of film is to have you escape and to be part of a quote unquote medieval festival or whatever type of thing it is. I did not feel that because it felt costumey, and that's not to say that the costumes were not appropriate, but it felt like actors in costume to me.
Yeah, that I can definitely see, and I think the other part of it is that this kind storytelling at this point film was still brand new, and theater was still the dominant form of presenting a story, other than books, and there was a lot of stuff that felt like theater. And again, as we had talked about before, some of the performances are just, you have to say laugh. Oh, right. Yeah. Matthew said Ren Fair. Exactly. It's not a Renaissance fair, but what's necessary and what were the values of performance and what people thought were good and bad, compared to now, that's the other thing that makes watching this film like you're taking a test.
Yeah,
because it's like, because you have to pay attention, and it is not. Ramon said I had a lot of caffeine before watching.
Good.
Yeah, because it. Oh, and Matthew's saying 1923 was the birth of radio too. Speaking of yet another form of what would be very popular way to tell a story. But the performances where you're watching an actor and there is no dialogue and they're just doing all the big dun, dun, you know, it's almost it's the parody of the silent movie, because that is what everybody did. That was the value, and it is hard to watch that now and not think that it's bad acting.
It's what you have to do. It's the same way. I think it's just a difference in acting. So acting styles change as time progresses. It's the same thing. Theatrical acting for the stage is not the same as acting for film. You have to be a lot bigger and project a lot more. And if you did the same thing for stage that you did for film, people would be like, why are you yelling? Number one, and why are you moving around so much and all over the place? Because the thing is, with the stage, you have to take up space there, you know, depending on where you are, you need to fill that stage and you need to speak to the person all the way in the back of the room. And that's not necessarily what needs to happen with film. So I think it's just, we're not used to that style. That's what it was. There was an awful lot of theater. As you said, stage was the predominant thing. Film was still very, very new. And that's what they did. They just transferred the skills from the stage to the screen. And you learn after a while, yeah, this doesn't quite work. You don't have to you don't have to be as over the top, right?
Yeah, it's a lot. It's acting for the back row, and there's no back row because everybody's in kind of close proximity to the same view in a movie theater. But again, this is brand new. This is a new form, and even acting. Even once we were into, Matthew says I still act like that. Once we're into sound, even as we talked about on the show before, the transatlantic accent, which is like an old timey radio voice with a little Katharine Hepburn thrown in, and that was a style of speaking that was taught, and it went out of style. But some I guess said that it was part of the reason you talk like this is because it's all up here and it's not down here, so there's no bass because there's no bass in your radio, and so it would actually sound better. So that is, so even watching that in say 40s to 50s, I would say the transatlantic died in the 50s. That style of talking. It's and even acting beyond that, and you get to the 60s and 70s and beyond, and acting was every kind of acting was being done.
Absolutely. I even noticed this in the way newscasters speak. So, you know, initially you've got this kind of Walter Cronkite-ish, and you could attest to this, Matthew, the way Nigerian journalists often were trained by the BBC. So they took on a very BBC way of speaking. And as I'm because I actually teach broadcast journalism. So as I'm noticing that the style or having one way of tonight, on, you know, is different because we're also now a changing country, and what middle America wants to hear is not the only thing we care about anymore. I mean, if you can't tell that some of the newscasters here are from Miami, I don't know what you could. So you hear, you know, the inflection of different types of people coming into newspeak, if you want. So I even noticed that in things like the news.
Definitely, and there's always it's almost like any local reporter that throws back to the studio. It's always the same. It's always the same. And this is so and so reporting from such and such, and it's just like, oh,
I'm Tachi reporting from the field, Bob.
Exactly. And I get that there's, you know, a reason for that and all the rest of it, but it still seems old timey.
It really is. It really is. And it's going to be interesting what happens now and how people will have to adjust because of technology. There's going to have to be an adjustment for technology as well. So it's going to be interesting.
I agree. The other thing that we got into a little bit earlier was the sets and the costumes. When I was looking up, where was it? There was a number of, I'm sorry, I lost my, oh, here we go. So this is from the production part of the Wikipedia. It says, in the beginning of January, it was announced that film production began with the setting in the Court of Miracles. Shooting the Parisian underworld scene required a cast of several hundred extras. The completion of the Notre Dame set, or Notre Dame set, and the street settings had not yet been completed. So in the beginning of February, filming had moved to the Madame de Gondeleur scenes, and because the production reportedly required 3,000 costumes for extras, requiring 6 weeks for the Universal Costume Department to complete all that. And that is the thing about this. When you say epic, this is crazy epic. This is 1923. This is not sound. This is a full-length movie. This is building sets. This is huge, gigantic film. By
just for that.
Yeah, by contemporary standards, you got hundreds of extras. That's a big production. I don't care what you're doing.
It's huge. Now, you know what? What was the historian or Joe Wilson or whoever knows? What was the norm? Did the extras get anything? They probably weren't required to get paid, were they?
You know, I don't know. I'm guessing they probably. Oh, Colleen's taking respite. There is. I'm guessing it was probably, you know, much like we were talking about with Plan 9 from Outer Space,
right,
that Roger Corman wanted to have the movie done by the end of 1959 before residuals had to be paid. So I'm guessing it was probably much like extras are treated now. If you're not in the union, you get essentially minimum wage or close to it, and you eat last. I'm guessing that because at that point there was really no union, that it was either like a buyout or, I mean, you can't get hundreds of people to sit around and do something for nothing.
For nothing, exactly.
And I'm also wondering, like, in terms of what was going on with society, you know, now people say, oh, it was an extra in a movie. And I'm like, oh, really? And anyone who's ever been an extra in a movie or watched anyone be an extra in a movie is so incredibly boring.
Oh my God. Yeah.
Oh,
it's
man,
so much work and a lot of sitting around for so little payout.
It really, and the advice that has been given more than once is like one of the worst things to do for an acting career, because I think it's great to see a set and see how things work and all that stuff. But and Matthew's saying, happily film has come full circle. Film Transformers with 550 extras because of 3D. Extras cheaper than 3D CGI. See, so that is a big time movie being made now. That wow, I mean, Transformers, you know, there's some CGI in that thing, and they're still going to bring in 500 people and use real explosions, and that's incredible.
It is,
but you can't fake it. There's just something about it's. Anytime you see like and it's always criticized during the any of the Spider-Man movies that they've made in this century, they always, when Spider-Man the character is flying from place to place, there's just there's physics. There's just a reality of what a human body does when it moves quickly and how it stops and all that. And it's really hard to fake that. And I'm not saying, you know, you have to be an expert in any of it. It's just, looking at it, you can see like something about this is a little bit off.
Right.
Something about this is not working.
It looks cartoony.
Yeah.
And that's problematic for me. I mean, you can only do so much to fool. You could do a lot to fool the whole human brain, but when I can't see or tell, you know, or if I can tell that's a person, then that's really not good. You're really not doing a good job. I think that, go ahead.
I think that's so hearing from Matthew, who's, again, Transformers, it's a giant movie, lots of CGI, they're still choosing to have 550 extras. That's amazing.
You
can't fake it.
You can't unless you know the remember in Titanic that scene where they're all waving from the shore. They're so far away that okay, you could probably say okay, they might be real. In fact, you may not even know they're CGI unless you're told. But that's because it's from so far away. But when you really have to have fine, intricate movements beyond waving, I think I saw a documentary where they were talking about that whole process of making it. You really need to use real folks. You're trying to mimic real life. You need to use real folks. That's
Yeah, I completely agree. And one thing that's that I've dealt with in filmmaking in terms of like, not that I was ever in any kind of CGI position, lots of fake gun flashes and sound, but when I shot a short film called Clyde Hates Bonnie. It's on YouTube. Look for it. It's a little violent, but I worked. It was written specifically for Julia McIlvaine, who's the lead in it. So she wanted to do some action. I wrote. So everything was written. We worked out what was going on. There's a point to the violence, but it is violent. But I worked with Dan Speaker and Jan Bryant, who are fight choreographers who had worked on Vampire Mob also, and because one character is slapping another character, it is harder to make a slap look real on camera than a punch because of just the physiology of how it works and what looks real and how, because a punch is just so much easier to camera angle it. So, but a slap the head has to move in a way that's almost faster, and it took a lot more rehearsal. It was a lot harder to get it to look real than faking punches.
Did you actually do the real slap, or you faked the slap?
Oh no, we faked all of it. Okay, always. And I will. And one thing with that, because I got a little crap for it, I did have a real slap. Actors really slapped each other in Vampire Mob, but the two actors were married in real life. They had gone to DePaul Goodman School of Drama together. They were also both certified in stage combat at some point in their career. So it was their decision, and I was just agreeing with it. And Sherry saying the world nowadays is interested in the real, the now, the truth. I think so.
I imagine you think so.
but the fight choreographers, Dan and Jan, really took me to task for it and said it was a really dumb idea. Regardless of how trained anybody is, regardless of how well anybody knows each other, to have one actor making physical contact with another actor is just, you're playing with fire.
Really?
Yeah, and it was their they didn't think it was a good idea, and I understand why. And they've worked on Hook and Master and Commander and big time movies with lots of swords and all the rest of it. So I can understand the philosophy of it, but also having shot a real slap, it's so much easier.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that it's so much easier.
I don't know if you watch How to Get Away with Murder with Viola.
I don't. I'm familiar with it, but I don't watch it now.
So there was one scene where she has a client, and she's been doing kind of deplorable things this whole time, and she has a client, and she got the client off, but the client, I guess, had the nerve to be ungrateful, and you didn't see it coming. She was like, "How dare you!" I mean, and it was I was like, "Oh my gosh." That's how good, and obviously it was real. But it made me think, how many damn times did they have to do this? Because that was a hearty slap, which and it makes me think, to your point, to fake that would not have worked because the head would have moved too soon or too far after. You have to do it for real.
I don't agree. I think you can fake it.
Really?
Yeah. If you watch Clyde Hates Bonnie, it is
okay. I'm gonna watch it.
The open scene is a woman tied to a chair being slapped for information. So it is a lot of slapping, and both with I'm blanking on the actor's name I worked with on this. Greg something. He's taller. He's like 6'4". He's a big guy. He's bigger than me. And so to have him kind of like towering over someone and trying to get the angle and all the rest of it. Yeah, it was because there were so many of them. If we really had to do that, she would have been red.
In red, yeah. So that makes sense.
And also, it's just like, again, when you're working with actors who are, regardless of, I had Dan Speaker was on set with us for that part. We shot out a sequence. We shot all the slapping stuff first, and then we shot the beginning and end. And the challenge is, like, you're putting one actor in danger when another actor is faking hitting them, because they have to be close enough for it to look real. And that is the danger of it. And you really want to fake it. Matthew's at, I'm 6'1" and change. Sherry says, if you're a great film editor, which I know of you can do just about anything. That is true. But if you didn't get it on camera, if you have to edit around what you didn't get on camera, it's not going to work, because it's like they're hiding their lack of ability. And I've seen it before, where it's like, you guys didn't get it, so you cut this, someone responding that way, so you didn't have to show the contact or like another character or whatever. Right.
It just feels like you purposely did it, as opposed to that's what you wanted to do stylistically.
Right. And it's also with shooting that, I shot that solo, which I'd never done before. Solo as an Ida boom operator, and a makeup artist. That was it. And the fight choreographer. I was the entire crew.
Wow.
And lit it, shot it, directed it. It was the only time I storyboarded anything, because I not to go off on a tangent, but that's what we do. I had to match in the script. I had written one scene going to another scene from the slap. So I needed the Julia's face to land at a certain point in the frame. So on the next day when we were shooting, I could line up the shot that it was to cut to the same way. So it wasn't like, oh, I'll just throw her, I'll have her head. It was like, I needed to land on this part of the frame because I need to cut to this shot where her head will be here. And then, so I had to draw that out, which I never do, ever. Because it's just I just cover it.
I get you. But you know what? You would have been there forever had you not storyboarded.
Yeah, or I would have had to cut it a different way, and it wouldn't have. And I was the editor, so I never storyboard just because I feel like it locks you in. But it was just, I couldn't keep it all in my head. That was the one time I couldn't have it all in my head, so I had to like go back and go, oh, okay, so she's here, and then I'm like framing the camera, and but yeah, the real thing is always going to sell better. And so for Matthew to be on a contemporary movie that was shooting a couple of weeks ago with 550 extras, and for the Hunchback of Notre Dame made in 1923, silent, hundreds of extras. It's the only way it works.
It is. And I give it, plus the fact there was no CGI back then, but
Right. But there was one scene where it looked like there was something going on, and it's early on when Quasimodo is swinging off a gargoyle, physically swinging off a gargoyle. And again, got to give it to Lon Chaney. But there's a shot from above where you see the crowd below. Yeah. And it almost looked like
kind of like the rear projection thing.
Their version of it. It almost looked like someone had cut into the frame of the film and added it. I don't know, but it jumped out. It was the only time it jumped out at me.
Exactly. So, I was so focused on him, doing all these acrobatics, because I'm like, is he really on a ledge doing this? Or I was focused on that. And then I saw that shot and I was like, this kind of looks like a rear projected type thing. And I wonder, I'm going to have to do some more research because I'm interested in that.
But all those sets are real. All those sets they built, all those sets were they shot at Universal, and it just like that is what's between the horses, the number of extras, and those sets for, again, 1923, it's new in makeup, but that I'm sure the Hunchback makeup on a stage would look amazing. And in film at that time, it looked amazing, but now it looks silly. And sorry, but we're just used to better things. So to now see it, to see that, but know that they, you know, they didn't do the Ed Wood cardboard mausoleum. They built castles and walls and city town centers and had horses, and it's yeah, it was great. I don't know where Colleen went, but we'll be closing out soonish.
Oh gosh, I lost my point.
Oh, and Sherry's saying, I love those old time silent movies with the creepy music. Someone should start another. Yeah, me too. It really, and the thing is, like, music really does, as Ramon was saying before, it really sells the scene. And that's still true. I even watched, it wasn't a trailer, it was like a PSA, and a longer PSA online, and there was music mixed in with it, and I'm watching it, and I'm like getting the chills, and I'm like, and I said this earlier on Snapchat, we're just giant bags of chemicals. You're just so easily influenced by, it's just ridiculous that this is what we got to work with.
No, absolutely. Absolutely. You know, this took me back also, this film. What probably, when you started making film, did you start directly on digital, or did you start with
I was on videotape.
You on videotape. Okay.
Yeah. Never filmed.
Never filmed. When I started on film, so 8, 16, 35.
Right.
So with 8, before you...
Oh, actually, I shot some Super 8 for a class in college.
Yeah, some Super 8. So that's...
But it wasn't direct. It was just like, you got to do this. And that was the only... So that was... I did shoot film once.
Yeah, there you go.
Right.
And so, yeah, when you start shooting Super 8, you know, when you first start doing it, we didn't do it with sound. So everything we did was silent, because, you know, it didn't have, you have the one that has the soundtrack on the side, but then you have the film that's just film stock. And
that's what we use. Same thing. And so, we would just bring in a boombox.
Exactly.
I did it. That's the way I did it.
Everybody did. So, you know, in a sense, when you start, you always have that concept of silent film that you started with, and you have to pay attention to the acting. You have to pay attention to the blocking and the way things are done. You have to pay attention to continuity, because you can't distract people with dialogue. So, you know, that's the interesting thing. So it kind of takes you back, and I was thinking about that as I was watching this, my own experience shooting quote unquote silent film. And though it was, you know, much different type of vibe than now, it's still the same tenets, you know. So it's really interesting, and I'm thankful for the experience of having to shoot old school, because I started on film, but of course I then did video as well back in the day when it was like linear,
deck to deck.
Yes, and you have the two TVs. So, you know, I'm thankful for the old school way of learning things, because it just made then digital so much easier, because then I didn't have to worry about all these things, you know.
I agree. I went to school for photojournalism, and in the 80s when it was filmed, so you had 36 pictures. That was the most you could have, and which means you weren't out with a card that you could shoot as many images as you want, or video, do whatever you want. You had to choose, like, okay, like I was constantly like, all right, I got 12 pictures left. What am I going to take them of? And when you're shooting a news event or a riot or a concert or whatever, you got to choose, because you can only have so much film with you and change it so many times.
Exactly.
So next week we talked about, because we had a couple of films that had Native Americans, American Indians in them, and of course finding positive representation is kind of impossible. So Colleen went on YouTube and found us a movie from 1991 called Clear Cut. And I'll just give you the log line. When a lawyer loses an appeal to stop a logging company from clear-cutting Native American land, Arthur, an Indian militant, drags him and kidnapped logging mill manager into the forest. The lawyer's empty talk about how the company's greed should be punished is put into brutal action by Arthur, who tortures the manager in allegorical ways, mimicking what loggers do to the forest. Wow. And also because I had mentioned to Billy Jack, I had mentioned to Colleen that we're going to need, I think we're going to need some more comedy and maybe a little more escapist trash for the next few weeks of shows.
I think so.
This may not be the beginning of that. That may start after, I've got a feeling.
You know, I really wish that Smoke Signals was, it's not really classic, it's from like the 90s, but yeah, I really wish that.
91, same thing.
Yeah.
So that is the movie. It is on YouTube. I will be posting about it everywhere. And Colleen, I hope everything's okay. We'll catch up soon. Thanks for being on the show. Matthew, thanks for the comments. And Tachi, thanks for joining us. Yeah. And thanks everybody over on the Booking of the Face that are hanging out. I appreciate the comments and you joining us. So next week, we've got a movie with sound. It'll be funish.
We'll make it fun.
We will make it as fun as possible.
Yes.
But thank you again for joining us, and we'll see you all next week.
Peace.
Bye-bye.
Bye.